Oh my God, 2020 is almost over. But one story you are going to want to follow in 2021 is the story of LA County's new district attorney. I kind of wondered why Los Angeles voters accepted San Francisco's sloppy seconds, but that's just me. I don't live in LA County. I live in the next county north. But this is a story if you live in LA County or you do business in LA County or you pass through LA County over the next year, the story you're going to want to watch is the new prosecutor, the new top lawman, legal lawman, George Gascon, and the battle with the prosecutors who work for him. And in fact, the Association of Deputy District Attorneys has filed a lawsuit against George Gascon this week over new directives he's issued, which they say violate the law, put them in a bind, make it impossible for them to do their jobs, which is to serve justice. Joining us right now on the phone is the head of that group, Michele Hanisee. Michele, thanks for joining us, first of all.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
I read through the filing, the petition. What legal base, first of all, what is Gascon trying to do?
Well, he's trying to change the world by ignoring the law is what he's trying to do. He's trying to implement his progressive policies by legislating by fiat. That's what he wants to do. He wants to make the law or disregard the law based upon his opinion.
So the changes, his directives are directing you and other prosecutors to do what? Well,
they're telling us to basically violate the law and violate our professional responsibilities to the court. Every attorney and every prosecutor took an oath. You raise your right hand and swear to uphold the Constitution of the state of California and of the United States. And part of your rules as a lawyer is that you have to enforce the laws. And this is him telling us, I don't want you to enforce the laws that I don't like. And that's put us in this really difficult position where if we don't follow his rules, we could get disciplined or fired. But if we do violate his rules and it's violating the law or our duties of professional responsibility, we could get disbarred and not be able to work anywhere.
Specifically, he is ordering you to ignore enhancements for future cases under the three strikes law and for current cases under certain reasons, like you can't have enhancements for gang-related cases or you can't have special circumstances that would lead to life without the possibility of parole. Give me a sort of a look, we're not lawyers, we're just citizens here. Give me an example of the sort of thing that you would not be able to do now because of his directive.
Well, the three strikes is a big one. The three strikes law is mandatory. It says prior strike offenses shall be filed. The word shall under the law means you got to do it. It's not your choice. And the discretion a prosecutor has, and a prosecutor and the lead prosecutor has a great deal of discretion, and you can evaluate charges on a case-by-case basis. But what you cannot do is just say, I'm not going to follow this law at all. And the three strikes law was enacted by the voters and through the legislative process, and multiple court opinions have held it to be constitutional and have held that the language says it's not optional, it's mandatory. You must file those strikes when they're there. And he's telling our attorneys not to do that. So there's no way around it. He's telling them to violate the law.
Let me ask you that. You do have discretion, but you're saying no one can have total discretion in saying you can't follow it at all. It seems a little squishy to me. I think he will argue that he can do it, that within his realm of discretion, he can say, no, I can tell them not to do this.
Yeah, no, and he certainly will, and he's taken that position, and he's taken a position that the law is unconstitutional in his opinion. But here's the thing. The law really allows a great deal of discretion for prosecutors in filing charges, and that is definitely the case. But it's not an exercise of discretion to say, I'm never going to do it. You know, that's not discretion. That's a blanket ban. Discretion is determining whether it applies in each individual case, whether it's warranted by the evidence, whether it's appropriate. But he's not asking his attorneys to do that. If he was, we'd be in a different place. We wouldn't be filing a lawsuit. He's saying you can never file those strikes, and the law says you must.
So when you go to court or a prosecutor has a new case starting next week, you have to follow this directive from the district attorney or face being fired. Is that correct?
Well, that's the implication. We're required to follow policy, and we already for sure know of one prosecutor in our office who received a letter of reprimand for not promptly following a directive to dismiss a case, who, when he was given no justification to do so. And, you know, once charges are filed, it's not up to the district attorney to dismiss the charges. It's up to the judge. So we can make a motion, but that motion has to be justified either by a lack of evidence that warrants dropping charges or what we call in the interests of justice. And that can be a wide range of things, but it's very case specific. It has to be, this person was acting under the influence of someone who had us under control, or he has no record, or he's been exemplary since. I mean, something that justifies it in the facts of a specific case. And just to say, because I don't like the law, doesn't fit that. So judges are denying these motions when the attorneys make them, but it puts the attorneys in a really bad position, because we have a duty of candor to the court that requires that if we're arguing a position and we know about adverse case law that says the opposite, we are ethically bound to advise the court of that. And people feel like they can't do that because it literally got to the point where he gave a script that people were supposed to read in court with the implication that you say this and you don't say a single thing more than this.
You sought a temporary restraining order and then took back that request when I think my understanding is the judge did not think that you could make a case for immediate harm. So there's this hearing, I guess, in February. What happens as a prosecutor between now and this hearing in February?
Well, our attorneys will continue to make a determination on their own to follow the policy or to follow their ethical obligations. And that's going to have to be an individual determination each prosecutor makes for themselves. No one can tell you how to be ethical. That's really an individual evaluation. In the meantime, all the parties will be briefing the issues for the civil court, and the plaintiffs, we ADDA, will still be asking the judge to tell Mr. Gascon that he cannot implement policies that require us to violate the law or our ethical obligations.
Now, he has to provide his own side, right? Didn't the judge say you got to come in with your side for why you are allowed to do this?
Yes, of course. He has an attorney, and he is absolutely entitled to file a response. They've already filed some brief responses on the very day of the first hearing. But there is a schedule, and they will be filing a response, and then we can file a response.
By the way, who's representing him? He's the district attorney of Los Angeles County. Who's representing him?
It's a private law firm. The county of Los Angeles does have county counsel, which is sort of the lawyers for the county, but they typically don't handle lawsuits. So when the county gets sued and it's going to a hearing, they typically hire private law firms.
What I would like to do, if you could hang around a few minutes, Michele, I want to talk more after the break about a couple of things, about what this is doing to the rank and file inside, what you think about the judge this is going to go before, and whether or not that plays to you or for you or against you. And also I'm going to ask you, look, the people of Los Angeles voted for this guy, and they knew what he stood for. And so who are you to stand in the way? And what this really means in terms of the safety of the citizens of the County of Los Angeles. So I hope you'll stick around, because we've got too much more to get into right now. Can you?
You bet.
All right. Michele Hanisee from the Los Angeles County Association of Deputy District Attorneys. They are suing their boss, DA George Gascon, saying that all these things he wants to do so that people don't go to prison for as long as they might or at all, and forcing prosecutors to, in her words, violate the law, and according to the lawsuit, violate the law, is illegal, and they don't want to do it. A big story, as I've said, if you live in the County of Los Angeles, you're going to want to watch this year, is what happens with your new district attorney and the battle being waged between George Gascon and the prosecutors who are in court actually trying to put criminals away every day. With us on the phone right now is Michele Hanisee, head of the LA County Association of Deputy District Attorneys, which is taking Gascon to court, saying his new directives, which forbid them from, special enhancements under the state's 3 strikes law, or you have to withdraw allegations to support tougher sentences in cases that include bail violations, gang-related cases, or special circumstances that could require a sentence of life without parole. The prosecutors are saying, for us to do this, that violates the law. Gascon is saying those laws are unconstitutional. It's all going to play out in court. Michele, let me ask you, the judge you're going to face is James Chalfant, who was the same judge who just ripped a new one in the county health department over this case of the county banning outdoor dining. I was there as he was just going off, very opinionated. And I don't know if that works for you or against you. What's your take on the judge in the case who will be deciding who wins?
Look, I'm a criminal lawyer, and this is my first time getting anywhere near the Writs and Receivers Department of Civil Court, but I've heard excellent things about Judge Chalfant. He's supposed to be a very smart man.
What do you think of the story that Bill Melugin on Fox 11 broke this week about an advisor to Gascon going behind the back of a prosecutor in a gang-related murder case and offering a quote-unquote sweetheart deal, 7 years, to the public defender?
Oh, if that is the case, and I've seen the transcript, it is scandalous and unethical. More so for the public defender, Ms. Blacknell, who had been representing that client. But, Ms. Blacknell is on Mr. Gascon's advisory committee, and by every rumor we hear, is being hired by him. So now you have her still working as a public defender, representing a client. Now she has a relationship with the district attorney to the point that he's likely, apparently, going to hire her. And she gets this sweetheart deal for her client.
And the prosecutor on the case is cut out.
And the prosecutor actually handling the case has zero knowledge. He's not advised. It didn't go through chain of command. Look, under any prior administration, if you were going to knock down a sentence on what's a murder case, a first-degree murder with a weapon and multiple attempted murders as well, you would be writing memos that would be going all the way up the chain of command and back down, justifying that. Here, it was this mysterious backdoor deal. And I realized they told some reporter, some newspaper, that, well, it was never an offer. She just inquired. But if you look at that transcript, the public defender who was in court represented to the judge that she did get an offer and she conveyed it to her client, and she told that to the judge. And you don't do that unless you have a real offer.
Well, and the district attorney, the prosecutor said, I thought I was the prosecutor on this case. And the judge was like, yeah, who is this other person you're mentioning? It's a fascinating story from Bill Melugin. My question for you is, what is, look, the L.A. District Attorney's Office has had its ups and downs through the years. I've covered many cases, even before the O.J. Simpson case. We're going back to Rodney. I mean, it's an office where morale has gone up and down. How would you describe it right now?
Oh, it's in the toilet. People are so distressed. They're beside themselves. And it's not just their personal feelings. You realize people are going into court and getting scolded by judges, saying, this isn't the law. There's no basis in the law for this. You're following this policy, but you know that this is not the law. Please, DA, tell me, how is this in the interest of justice? So they're getting taken to pieces by the judges over this, too. They don't want to do it. They're forced to do it. And then they're being called to the carpet by the judges. And then the victims are in court crying, saying, why do you have to do this? I have my Marsy's Law rights. I have my victims' rights. What's happening?
Now, Michele,
so it's very distressing.
George Gascon won the election. A majority of L.A. County voters said yes to him, knowing what he stood for. How do you feel about it? What do you say to them?
They did vote for him, and they did vote for change. And that is okay, but he has to work within the parameters of the office to which he was elected. And what this really is a classic separation of powers issue. The legislative branch is authorized to enact laws, as can the voters through the initiative process. The judicial branch is authorized to rule on the legality of those laws. The executive, and that's what Mr. Gascon is, an elected official, is not authorized to do either. He has to follow the law. And if he doesn't like it, he only has two legitimate avenues. He can petition the legislative branch to change the law, which he can. We have a very robust legislative branch in Sacramento that does just that. Or he can appeal to the courts to rule it unconstitutional. But what he's doing is he's putting his personally held views above the decisions of the legislature and the judiciary, and that's a violation of the separation of powers.
And let me ask you one final question, because it's what his platform is. Do we over-incarcerate and over-sentence, and what is the solution in your opinion?
That's a really intense question.
That you can't answer in a minute.
That I can't answer in a minute. Okay, here's where we need to start, right? Don't start fixing the problem by letting a bunch of people out of prison when you haven't figured out how to effectively rehabilitate them. The California Department of Corrections and the Los Angeles County Probation Department have a 50-50 chance of actually rehabilitating someone who's been through their programs, which is coming down to dumb luck. They don't have effective programs. So I think that if the government wants to take this path and that the voters want to take this path, you need to dump all of your resources into figuring out effective rehabilitation, which, by the way, isn't run by the DA's office. It's run by the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation and probation departments. And there's also a lot of private organizations that have some actually successful rehabilitation problems. So let's figure out how to rehabilitate people before we start letting them out extra early. Okay.
Michele Hanisee, head of the LA County Association of Deputy District Attorneys. I really appreciate you spending some time with us on New Year's Eve. Happy New Year. Good luck.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, and Happy New Year, everyone. 2020 is over.
Thank you.